Okay, sorry about that. Uh, let me on my screen to screen. So I'm supposed to share some screen, but I'm having problem with my computer and internet just now. I think my video. I just bought a new video because the internet video spoiled. I'm sorry. Good morning, everybody. Happy morning to everybody. I'm Bob Lim from Malaysia. Let me adjust the video first so that you can see me very closely. It is too near, but it's okay, right? I, I will keep the video camera. Okay. Okay. Good morning, everybody again. I'm Bob Lim from Malaysia, and I've been called upon by invited by Dr. Our good friend Dr. Sadiku Diab, he's a vice president of the IFTH, to give a talk. Actually, I wanted to give it to somebody else, but nobody else seems to like to take up this at the last minute. So I will just share a bit about Malaysia, but I hope I can put in some, share some screens on the archive or the books where we will talk about the history of homeopathy and in Malaysia, especially for those who don't know about homeopathy. And then I will bring the next session to Dr. Ibrahim, who is from the Cyberjaya University in Malaysia, formerly known as Cyberjaya University College of Medical Science. Oh, yeah, some already sent regards to me. Okay, thank you, Dr. Amir. Okay, so he's willing to give another session of this talk from Malaysia to share with you. So what is the status of homeopathy in Malaysia? It seems that the educated people, some of them know, but some of them don't know about homeopathy. And the uneducated people, most of them know, and most of them also don't know what is homeopathy really about. So we have like to promote homeopathy more to the public, maybe to Facebook, and I hope the relevant authorities will encourage us to do this. And we have so many council here in Malaysia, and I hope that they will fully support us in this venture. No matter which association or group you belong to, as long as you practice genuine homeopathy, then I think the public may accept it. What is important is not who you are and how qualified you are, but what is the result you have. That is the most important thing. And the experience you have, I think, will play a very important part in treating patients. Okay. So I will talk about, shall I share some screen first? I think it's Dr. Ibrahim on. I think you have to invite Dr. Ibrahim. Oh, I think I couldn't get any screen here. I think what I can do is, because it's something new to me, I haven't been to this presentation on the webinar before, only to normal presentation on the LCD projector. So I'm sorry that I'm not very familiar with this Zoom thing. So can I invite Dr. Ibrahim to start the talk first, so that I can try to settle with my laptop. Hello, Dr. Ibrahim, are you on the line? Hello. I got to send. I think Dr. Ibrahim also had some problem.
Yeah, Dr. Abraham is here. I
Zoom.
unmuted. Sir, you can talk.
Oh, Dr. Ibrahim is here, right? Okay. Okay, Dr. Ibrahim, yes. Very good morning to Dr. Ibrahim. He's also my very good friend. I've known him for many years. Since he's come to step down from his comfort zone in India and decided to give his services to homeopathy in Malaysia. And he's the professor of Cyberjaya University for the DHMS course. I think there's only one university at present moment in Malaysia that is doing DHMS homeopathy that is recognized by the lately the MQA. Now in Malaysia we have this MQA. So I think I would not like to say so much about Cyberjaya since he's already here. Then you can hear most part from him, and I think he's very happy to share. Can you hear me? You can. Okay, am I audible? Okay, without much ado, I think I would like to invite Dr. Ibrahim to present a talk here about what he want to present about this Cyberjaya University in Malaysia, and also there are also a few universities pursuing the DHMS course, which is a very good sign for Malaysia. We have the Lincoln College now pursuing the DHMS, and the future one will be, I think, will be some Vidat College. They're applying for MQA. So I think since Dr. Ibrahim from Cyberjaya is the pioneer in Malaysia for this DHMS course, and there has been so many years and so many batches have graduated. I think I will just hand it over to Dr. Ibrahim. Dr. Ibrahim, over to you. Can you unmute yourself, Dr. Ibrahim?
I already unmuted. I think, sir, sound is not coming. Please check the headphone.
Hello?
Yeah. Yes, sir, you can.
Hello? Yeah. Am I audible now?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you so much. Thank you so much once again. Thank you, Mr. Bob, and all the organizers of this platform. Really appreciate and thankful for all this opportunity given. So without further ado, I would like to share my screen. So there'll be a short presentation where I would like to speak on the status of homeopathy in Malaysia in short. Okay, and maybe if the time permits, just a short case I would like to present. So let's see. Okay, let's begin with the status of homeopathy in Malaysia. So let me share full screen. Okay. So when we talk about homeopathy in Malaysia, so this one is not at all new to Malaysia. It's been there for past 100 years, almost 100 years. But it was only recently, few years back, recognized universities, they started the recognized and approved program by Ministry of Higher Education and Ministry of Health under some universities for few disciplines. So it was only started in 2010. So I would like to just highlight a bit of the journey of homeopathy education in Malaysia. So when we talk about our university, earlier our university was known as CUCMS, Cyberjaya University College of Medical Sciences, which I joined in the year 2012, where I'm working as a dean of the Faculty of Traditional and Complementary Medicine. Just I would like to tell here, every country they have the different names. Okay, when we talk about alternative medicine, complementary medicine, like in India we know it as Ayush. So many countries they have some countries they call it alternative medicine, complementary alternative medicine. So in Malaysia we call it traditional and complementary medicine, T and CM. So we have got like besides faculty of medicine, faculty of pharmacy, so we have got a faculty of traditional and complementary medicine in a University of Cyberjaya. Now it's known as University of Cyberjaya. So when we again like okay talk about this education, so our university was the first, not just in Malaysia, but in entire Southeast Asia, okay, to start a recognized bachelor's program in homeopathy at the university. Okay. So after us, like only just recently, we have got another university, okay, from Lincoln, okay, which last year they started, and one more coming up, like from Vidad University. So like okay, the education in homeopathy in Malaysia is gradually growing. Besides bachelor, again, our university is the only university who is offering masters as well as PhD programs since 2016. Okay, in our university, so by research mode, and already we have okay, graduates from masters in homeopathy and as well as PhD in homeopathy. Besides that, we have almost around 20 students who are pursuing masters and PhD in homeopathy in our university. And then like besides this, okay, the recognized programs, we do have like continuous professional development courses for especially for practitioners, for alumni, for students, okay, which we do conduct every now and then. Then we have got like something called as acquired prior experiential learning, that's FLC. So if like you do not have a proper qualification, okay, so you still can enroll for either bachelor's program or master's or PhD program based on your your past experience. So like, how many years like you have been there in that field. So based on that, so you can go through Apple and you can get admissions into either diploma, bachelor's, master's, or PhD programs. So this is just in short a brief of like how exactly the education system in Malaysia. So like I was mentioning that okay, homeopathy is not new to Malaysia, but it was only in the year 2010. So from where okay we started with homeopathic education and like the other traditional complementary medicine in Malaysia. So in our universities, UCMS, so it was only in the year 2008. So this faculty of traditional and complementary medicine was established, and then okay, so we submitted a program to MQA, the Malaysian Qualifying Agency. Like similarly, what we have in India is a UGC, okay, so which looks after all the program accreditations and its approval. And finally we got approval in the year 2010. So that was the like a year from where okay, so we started a BHMS program in Malaysia. So along with the BHMS, so it was a bachelor in Chinese medicine and bachelor in chiropractic. So these three programs actually they kick started from the year 2010. Before that, there was no university in entire Malaysia, not even in like Southeast Asia, offering these accredited approved programs in these disciplines. So it started with three programs in different universities. So our university was the first one to start homeopathy program in the year 2010. So the first intake, so these are our students. We started with 7 students. So these are our first students, 7 students who took homeopathy in the year 2010. Then okay, so when we start a program, so like we don't get a full accreditation, like full permission to run a program. So we call it a PA, provisional accreditation. So okay, so after 4 years, so you can apply for full accreditation. So that visit was conducted in the year 2014, and a university, a program got full accreditation from MQA. So these are our pioneer students, homeopathy graduates in Malaysia. These 7 students. So total number, like okay, till now, from 2014 to 2021, so almost around 70 students they have graduated from a university, and the current total number of students is around 90. That's how like our new campus looks like. So 2 years back only we moved to our new campus. It's nearby Kuala Lumpur International Airport. So besides, okay, our MQA, we do have recognition from Australian Register of Homeopaths, like RO. So our degree is recognized there by Australian Register of Homeopaths as well. Okay, to run this program, so we need partnerships with many different parties, local as well as international. So we do have the local collaborations with the main our homeopathy associations called as MPHM, even like GAPERA, like Malay Medicine Association. Besides that, okay, we do have collaboration with NASOM, like this Autism Society in National Autism Society in Malaysia. Okay, so besides these local collaborations, we do have international collaborations such as like Dr. ML Dhawale's Memorial Hospital, that's in Mumbai. So where students they go for practical or clinical training. Then we have MOU with Barwalia Foundation, Dr. Praful Barwalia's Foundation, Sairam Homeopathic Medical College in Chennai. With that, even like we do have a MOU signed with MUHS, Maharashtra University of Health Sciences. And then, okay, besides India, so we do have other MOU signed with Indonesian association called as Kotabi. Okay, so there are just I've listed here just few partnerships. Okay, so whom we keep organizing now and then. Look at some programs. Now again talking about the education, how exactly the education for homeopathy in Malaysia is like. Okay, so after starting this course in 2010, so then like we have done lots of improvement, and the major curriculum review was done in the year 2019. So with that we have got all the the improved curriculum, which includes like all basic medical sciences and core homeopathy subjects. A detailed study is being done with very clear objective, because this here the education system is very much OBE, objective based education. So like learning outcomes becomes utmost important. So each and every subject, okay, with clear learning outcomes, so we have come out, and it's more of clinical oriented teaching and learning, where we have included courses such as surgery and homeotherapeutics, gynae ops and homeotherapeutics, forensic medicine, toxicology, homeotherapeutics, and other subjects such as psychiatry, pediatrics, ENT, ophthalmology, dentistry, and homeotherapy. So these like the subjects like, which were never there before, so which we introduced and we improved this curriculum, and looks more compatible and competitive when it comes to clinical practice. So this is just a glimpse of like how we offer courses here. So this is a year one list of courses. So we divide these courses, so like subjects in different modules such as the basic medical sciences, core homeopathy subjects, humanities, and MPU. We call it like a university compulsory subjects. So BM has like ANAT, physio, biochemistry, nutrition, psychology. We have core homeopathy. We started with organon, HMM, homeopathic pharmacy in year one. Humanities, we have subjects such as medical ethics and professional development. Then university, these are local subjects, entrepreneurship, affective domain, and all. Okay, so like here, like one thing like, which you can definitely observe, like we have got something like affective domain. Okay, then humanities subjects. Okay, besides our main core homeopathy subjects and basic medical sciences. I'll come to that point. This is year two list of courses: patho, microbiology, pharmacology, community medicine, research methodology, evidence-based medicine, along with again core homeopathy subjects, and then again university subjects we have. Year three, again BMS community medicine. Then we have again core homeopathy subjects. Now here more clinical subjects start with case management and homeotherapeutics. That's basically our medicine and homeopathy therapeutics. Then we have surgery, gynae and ops, homeotherapeutics. Again, scientific method, we include critical thinking. So last time we had a research methodology, now we have critical thinking. Again, affective domain. Like every year we do have this affective domain. Okay, maintain. This final year, so this is 4 years program. Okay, so this is final year with 8 semesters, like semester 7 and semester 8. So we have first aid and emergency medicine project paper. So all the look at the theory part of your research methodology has been done. So now they need to do a project paper, a research project they need to undertake. Besides again homeopathy, core homeopathy subjects. So where we come with clinical posting, also called as industrial training, where right now we send our students to India for this clinical training. And once they complete this 4 years, 8 semesters, then they need to undertake professional exam in order to graduate. Okay, so like here, what I wanted to highlight is like, okay, so in education, we look at three different domains: cognitive domain, psychomotor, and affective domain. So cognitive domain, like it's all about, okay, so how your theory subjects are all about. Then, okay, psychomotor, it's like about developing the skills and putting it into practice. That is psychomotor skill. Now with this, okay, you need an affective domain, like how the behavior of the student is, how their communication skill is, whether they are able to work in a team or not. So all these areas are considered under affective domain. So this curriculum is a combination of all these three domains, which is a must for each and every educational program: cognitive, psychomotor, and affective. So which we definitely, okay, try to look into and incorporate all these three domains in a program. Clinical training, as I said, okay, so here we do have, okay, a few clinics. Again, we do have a center in university campus. Sadly, like we do not have like hospital the way we have it in India, okay, where we offer homeopathy or other traditional medicines under like our medical colleges and in 50 or 100 or 200 bedded hospitals. So, when, okay, so before going for the final year clinical posting, so we post our students from clinical, starting from second year to all these, okay, different clinics, the main clear center in our campus. And then beside that, we do have MOU with, okay, few other centers in Malaysia where they go for this clinical training. And when they, okay, come into final year, final semester, then we send them to India for a more like a detailed and more practical training, sort of like hands-on training. So that's Hombedi Center. So as I said, like earlier, our university was known as CUCMS, Cyber University College of Medical Sciences, CUCMS. Now it's known as UOC, University of Cyberjaya. So we got the full university status in the year 2019. So before that, it was University College. So every day, look, we offer these, okay, services in our center. So where we post our students for hands-on training. For this detailed training, as I mentioned, that we have signed an MOA with a very reputed institute in India, Dr. M.L. Dhawale Homeopathic Medical Institute in Mumbai. So where our students, they be there for an entire semester for almost 4.5 months to undergo that training and to get that hands-on training. So that's how, like, when they go to India, so like they do attend all different departments, starting from medicine, different disciplines of medicine, then surgery, ops and gynec, as well as other clinics as well, other departments as well. So like what exactly we look into as a career prospect for these students. So the first objective is definitely as a Homeopathic practitioner, then as a researcher. So like if you have seen, okay, the courses which I mentioned, uh, so like the students, okay, and when they are pursuing bachelor, okay, undergraduate, then only they are exposed to all research methodologies. So by now, like before even going for master or PhD program, they know what research is and how to conduct a research. So that's why actually after completing BHMS here in Malaysia, so they can become an independent researcher. As an academician, as an entrepreneur, they can start their own clinic, or okay, they can work for somebody else. They can start a center. Then there will definitely be future jobs in government sectors here as per the blueprint of our Ministry of Health Malaysia. So all the general hospitals, okay, in Malaysia, besides the other clinics, so they will be starting traditional and complementary medicine centers in all these government hospitals. So whereby they will open up for these traditional and medicine modalities. So for now, they have recognized 7 these practice areas. So homeopathy is one of them. So they will be opening all these, okay, the branches and the departments in the hospital. So where the graduates, they can easily find jobs. Besides that, they can pursue masters and PhD, not just in homeopathy. They can definitely, okay, do masters and PhD in homeopathy. But besides that, okay, they can pursue masters in other subjects such as anatomy or physiology or biochemistry or any other discipline. So because this bachelor program will provide them that platform whereby they can further their studies in other areas, even other than homeopathy. So they're just, okay, I'm sharing few photographs where like, we conduct few activities. Now, this was just herbarium sheet. How to prepare herbarium sheets? We engage one botanist who was expert in preparing herbarium sheets. So like we keep conducting such seminars and workshops for students with hands-on training, so that they know how to preserve, okay, all these important drugs. These are okay, just our pharmacy practicals, how to prepare medicine. Then we do engage in public and special talks by all renowned people in the field of medicine in Malaysia or outside Malaysia as well. Just okay, few figures. So this is a post-professional exam. So like we do invite external examiners outside Malaysia as well to come over here and examine our students. They are all again like just few glimpses, okay, like where how we engage external parties in sort of like getting that exposure to our students. Okay, like we do okay approach national radios, even TVs and all, and we do come out with some programs either on radio or on TV, in newspapers. Okay, and this is Dr. Munir, organize a capacity building workshop for academic excellence. Dr. Farooq Master have been here a couple of times. So these are just okay few pictures I'm sharing. So how we always okay try to keep in limelight with the need of the hour. Okay, as I was mentioning, because we do have like a Masters of Science or MSc in TNCM. So like where we our students they can take either homeopathy or Malay medicine or Islamic medicine or naturopathy for their masters and PhD programs, which we started from 2016 year, and we always have graduate in masters and PhD as well, and plus almost around 20 students they are pursuing currently masters and PhD programs in our university. This is the first student, the yellow scarf one, okay, so was our first graduate in masters in homeopathy. Okay, this is our current staff. So I'm working there as a dean of faculty of traditional complementary. Besides that, okay, we have a few more lecturers helping me out in conducting this program. Okay, so like this was in short an overview of homeopathy education in Malaysia. So as I said, like we are the pioneer of homeopathy education in Malaysia, and now like there are a couple of more universities coming up, and I hope like this will keep growing now, because the number of enrollments are increasing every year. Besides that, we do have people coming to pursue their masters and PhD in homeopathy. And recently, because of we, our Minister of Health, okay, so they have already like okay, announced a traditional complementary medicine TCM Council, which is already in place. So now all these programs will be very well regulated by Council and Minister of Health and Minister of Higher Education. Besides that, then again, as we all know that okay, before 2010, so there was uh, no university in entire Malaysia offering accredited programs, okay, in homeopathy or any TNCM discipline. It was only in 2010 it started. So now I just mentioned about homeopathy, which is there for almost 100 years in Malaysia. So like there are so many okay homeopathy practitioners, a lot of actually a big number who have been practicing since ages. Somebody's practicing for past 20 years, 30 years, 40 years they have been practicing. But sadly, okay, they do not have proper qualification because there was no university in Malaysia so that they can go and pursue their studies. But they have been practicing since so many years. And actually, because of only such practitioners, like when homeopathy or any other discipline is still alive in Malaysia. So to recognize their contribution, so the government has come out with a special program for all these practitioners, okay, so who have been practicing for so many years without proper qualification. So they will be put under a capacity building course, CBC. The way like we had in India somewhere back in 1960, 70, like we used to call them RMP, registered medical practitioners. Okay, so like those people who did not have a proper qualification, but still they were practicing. So government came out with this policy, like okay, so they have to undertake this a short course on the basis of the experience. So they will be given the title of RMP, registered medical practitioner. So similarly, now Malaysian government is doing with all senior existing practitioners here of TNCM practices to allow them to undergo this capacity building course so that they can practice homeopathy or other disciplines uh, without any difficulties. Because without, okay, after this, then no one else will be allowed to practice TNCM modalities unless until they have minimum bachelor's, okay, in these disciplines. So I hope like I'm clear with this. If any doubts, okay. Yes, Mr. Bob, you have raised your hand. So if you want to ask something, and I want to know like if I have got a couple of more minutes left.
No, it's okay. You carry on. Because I want to
change
change the video.
the
mobile
mobile so I can
show
okay.
something on my screen later on.
You're
You are doing very well. Thank you, thank you.
Okay, I'll just proceed with the case very quickly. I will wrap up this case. Okay, just I would like to share this one case of Pemphigus vulgaris. This is like one of the most challenging cases I have ever come across. I've been in practice for almost around 23, 24 years. Okay, but this like one of those most challenging cases. But here I won't be sharing complete detail. Okay, just a few things. When this patient came to me, he was 36 years of age, male patient. So this pemphigus, as we know, this is an autoimmune disorder, and there's like always keeps saying like even like the enemies shouldn't get this disease. So bad is like, and I've seen the worst of okay this case. That's how the eruption started, okay, appearing. Okay, sadly, okay, I have got look at just few pictures of this, and then in between when actually the eruptions were very bad. Those pictures somehow my bad luck, I misplaced, but I do have okay the post treatment with all the eruptions, which where you can definitely see like how bad the eruptions were. So that's how like it started, and we know like these the cars which are formed here in the disease, they are easily detachable. So like these are eruptions the patient had from head to toe. So like no matter like he wants to sit or sleep, he has to sit on these eruptions and the crust. Okay, so whenever he wants to sit, and also it will stick on his bed, on his chair. So the moment okay he wants to get up, the entire skin will be exposed, leaving it like with the bleeding and intense burning pain. Patient used to literally scream. I had admitted this patient almost for he was in IPD for almost 3 months. Okay, that's how like you can see like okay these are the pictures after the eruptions got healed. From head, you can easily okay imagine how bad the eruptions were from head to toe. Not a single part of his body left out with these eruptions. So that was okay the totality, the way it was presented, like the eruptions since 2 years started from thighs, legs, then nape of neck, then it spread to entire body. Okay, even like these eruptions were there in his buccal cavity. Almost for 2 months this patient couldn't eat anything. He was only on little bit of liquid food and mainly on IV fluids. Okay, because so badly even his buccal cavity was affected. So sensation like okay, so these were vesicular bullous eruptions with a discharging pus, highly offensive. So much so that in entire ward, he was the only patient because nobody could even like come near to that ward. So offensive the discharges were, with intense burning pains, and these yes eruptions were bleeding. And these are like a few modalities: aggression, night, motion, touch, aggression by warmth. Along with that, like a very marked concomitants we had: disturbed sleep and despair of life, anxiety, restlessness, irritability, and of course, like hopelessness, suicidal thoughts. Now, here just I would like to mention the suicidal thoughts and all. Like his condition had become so worse that once when I went to visit him for just a normal follow up, he literally begged before me that doc, please, I give you permission to kill me. that mercy killing. He did ask for that, and he was literally begging for that mercy killing. That I cannot take this anymore, so please kill me. That's the reason why I mentioned like one of the most challenging cases, because he was very young. He had a position of a general manager at one of the petrol pumps. He was doing very well financially. Just married few years back. He had got a good family, friends. Everything was very well. He was from a well-to-do family until he got this disease. And the moment he got the disease and the way it was spreading, so he started. He lost his job. Okay, then one by one his relatives they started distancing. Then his friends and all, because he was needing money for his treatment and all. Finally, even his wife also left him. So he said, like, I'm all left alone. So what should I do? And my disease is increasing day by day. I cannot even sit. I cannot sleep. I can't do anything. Okay. So it's better I die. So that was the situation there. So these are few physical generals. Mark desire for spicy food, meat, drinks, potatoes, etc. He was a chilly patient with fearful dreams. And like in mental health, so we did consider about irritability, anxiety about disease, despair of life, hopelessness, suicidal thoughts, restlessness, etc. So considering all the totality, so like we came out with few remedies, and now like a remedy which was we did use as a local remedy, that was mesarium, and mesarium actually did help him quite a lot because of like his scabs and all, and this scabs because of second infection. So there was a pus beneath the scabs. Okay, so that was the reason why we had prescribed mesarium in this patient, and it did help to improve the eruptions. But again, like it was not giving us that the much needed relief. So we again re-looked at this case. And when we tried to look at his occupation, that he was working there as a general manager at one of the petrol pumps, where actually he had to this load and unload these petrol tanks. So continuously being with that petrol diesel for almost 10 to 12 hours a day from Monday to Saturday. Okay, so now like we again just try to understand like what could this be a cause, like why he's getting all these eruptions and all. And when we try to look into that cause more, then we came across this one fact, okay, that this petrochemical industries, okay, so they can give rise to arsenic poisoning. So when we came across this fact, so then like our prescription was very much clear for us. Okay, so when we analyze the presented case, which was very much similar to arsenic picture, and we started with arsenic, okay, with very low potency 6C we started with, then gradually we went ahead for 30, and then again because it's sensitive we switched it to LM potencies. Okay, we started with then 0 by 1 and so on. And after starting arsenical, the way he started, it was like a miraculous sort of result we started getting. After 2 months, finally his eruptions started getting dried up. He was after 2.5 months he was discharged from IPD because his eruptions got improved a lot. And then again he was on treatment for another 6 to 8 months, and that's how like his eruptions, they look like all eruptions gone now. Okay, and that's how he looks today. And okay, one more remarkable improvement we found in this case is like he was married for almost 4 5 years, but he had no children. And after starting this disease, actually he was put on high dosages of steroids, and the dermatologist was very much clear. He had told him very clearly that because we have put you on so high doses of steroids for so long time, so possibility that you might not become father in your entire life. So that is one of the side effects. But after this treatment, after 1 year, his wife, who returned back, after seeing him improved, so she also came back. Okay, and after like a couple of months and all, so she got pregnant. So now like That's how, like, okay, he looks like, okay, today, and he's living almost, it's been more than 9 years, absolutely no recurrence of this attack whatsoever. So he's living his normal life. Okay, so that's like one of the very yes, interesting cases for me as far as I'm concerned, because we don't come across pemphigus vulgaris so often in our practice. And if we come, yes, it's always a challenge how to deal with these cases. Okay, so I think, okay, with this, I'd like to thank Mr. Bob and all the organizers of IFPA for giving this wonderful opportunity for me to share what and how the education of homeopathy looks like in Malaysia. Thank you so much. Thank you once again.